When it comes to progress, shouldn't we be measuring what really matters? For instance, if we as countries around the world want to achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs as they are known, what are the critical elements that we should be measuring? Yes, of course, GDP and growth and all the conventional economic metrics are very important. But what are the things that measure people's quality of life? What are the things that measure standards of living? These are the things that chapter 3, this chapter is focused on, in focusing on genuine economic progress. So the whole idea with genuine economic progress, which actually is a second criteria of an inclusive economy, is not just about comparing GDP levels, but it's about focusing on how can people's quality of life improve sustainably and also on average. So genuine economic progress involves a balancing of three things, essentially. On the one hand, people and the needs of people, the state of people, the quality of life. Number two, nature, because as we all know, we live within ecological limits. And also, we must operate more and more effectively in symbiosis with nature. And then the third aspect of genuine economic progress is ethics. Now, ethics is almost a foreign concept to the concept of economics, and later in the book we'll explore that a bit more. But it's very important that boundaries are respected, and also ethical frameworks. We all have a common ethic as human beings. There's human rights, and there's all kinds of ethical standards and standards for behavior. The importance is that these things need to operate in symbiosis. You need to prioritize people, you need to prioritize nature, and you need to prioritize ethics or ethical behavior. So in doing this, from a more quantitative perspective, the chapter identifies and examines a number of genuine economic progress measures, because this is important. As the old saying goes, you can't manage something if you can't measure it. So measuring is very important. So what alternatives are there? So before I mention them, let me just say these alternatives are not in replacement of things like GDP. It's complementary to GDP. GDP measures production and consumption, the quantity of that. But we need more, we need to measure more. If we want to understand and get to know the quality of life of people and the improvement of that quality of life, and then draw comparisons so that there is a gradual increase in that, as is suggested by the Sustainable Development Goals. So the first aspect of genuine economic progress is a metric that has been developed for the last, I would say, over the last 30 years, and it's called Genuine Progress Indicator. So this takes, interestingly, three components of factors into consideration. The one, of course, is economic factors. The other one is social factors, and then environmental factors. Now, the basic premise of the GPI is to measure the progress of, let's say, income levels and standards of living, quality of life of people. So income level increase in the context of societal improvements. For instance, if there's a lot of crime in a community, people can be financially better off, but the problem is they're not having a better quality of life. So those are the aspects that also needs to be taken into consideration. Why? Because we want to manage the economy better. Now you would say, well, crime is not part of the economy. Yes, maybe part of the black market or the illegal economy. But the fact of the matter is these things are part of two things: stimulating economic progress and preventing or creating access in the economy. So those are the factors that are critically important. And then looking at environmental factors, respecting nature, operating within our ecological limits, because that has been a major concern. If you look at research, we are operating beyond our capacity in terms of what nature offers. Yes, we can say technology is the magic wand. I'm very concerned about that frame of mind, because what if it doesn't work? And what if technology presents its own limitations and problems and also worsen the whole sustainability challenge that we have? So these are the things that needs to be addressed. So the GPI brings those three components or factors into balance, which is quite interesting. Another one is a well-known one, the Human Development Index, developed by the United Nations. That's normally one most countries use around the world, and that helps also to determine and compare developmental levels, and also looking at the broader picture than just income levels or growth levels. And then another one is called Happy Planet Index, which is a very interesting one, and that looks at specifically the components of quality of life and how that improves. And lastly, you have, for instance, something called the Wellbeing Index, which was developed in the United Kingdom and used in a number of countries around the world. So these are measuring the well-being of people, both individually and collectively. And these measures help us to get a much broader picture of human progress and economic progress. And not just a broader picture, but it helps to reprioritize what we thought is important by just looking at GDP growth. So it fundamentally alters our focus in terms of seeing the significance of what really contributes to people's quality of life and also things that do not. So if we talk about real progress, that means, in my view, and I want to suggest this, and please let's think together about this, real progress means moving from innovation for profits to innovation for well-being. Innovation is key, but it's not just about profits. It's about the well-being of people, which is a broader concept, and I explore that in the book and develop that. So when you bring Ubuntu into the picture, Ubuntu asks a very interesting question in this regard. It asks, how can reciprocity function as a vital allocation mechanism in the economy? Reciprocity is integral to the concept of Ubuntu. It's based on the philosophy of I can't sleep if I know my neighbor is hungry, for instance. Reciprocity brings a caring element in the economy. Yes, the economy needs to be productive, it needs to make profit, it needs to grow, but it's also about people, and people are at the center of the economy. So the question then is, how can reciprocity, which is a dormant potential in the economy, better be used as a allocation mechanism so that resources are shared better and also more people have access to resources?